Hello everyone who subscribed to Ika Media TV. This is our channel which provides you lessons related to inclusion. Inclusive education can be found here on this channel, Ika Media TV. It's only to have subscribed, and I remind those who did not subscribe that it's time they subscribed. I hope you have subscribed, all of you. If you know that, open this video, make sure that you watch the video having subscribed. As you see on your screen, it's written discount entry. You can see this figure, you can see this picture, you can see many things there. You can see these words: impairments, disability, handicap, inclusive education, exclusionary education, reflection questions, concepts. So as we people who are dealing with what you call inclusive education, or simply let me say that each and every teacher must know all these points, must consider these key points, must put in practice all these concepts. That's what you must know. Impairment, disability, handicap, inclusive education, exclusionary education, and other points that we will talk about in this lesson. Let's start with the definitions, the explanations about these points. The first point is what you call impairment. As I said, each and every teacher must know, must implement, must consider these concepts, as well as everyone who is in education matters, is concerned with education. So let's start with impairment. If we say impairment, understand a damage to a body part caused by different factors, including disease, accident, and other factors which may also cause disabilities. So you understand, impairment, this is a damage to a part of the body, organic system, caused by genetic factor and disease, accident, or other factors which may also cause disabilities. Then let's go to the second concept, which is disability. Then disability refers to partial or complete loss of use or ability of a certain body part or organ. It is also a social issue because each society interprets disabilities in accordance to their social norms and standards. It is a restriction or lack of ability to perform an activity in the manner of or within the range considered normal for a human being. Let's talk about the third concept, which is handicap or participation restriction. This is a process or restriction of a point with disability. A restriction of a person with disability or other limitation face when interacting with the environment. You understand? Handicap can be society's attitude toward people disabled. Let's talk about this concept again. Handicap refers to society's attitude towards people with disabilities. Then special needs refers to any of various difficulties such as physical, emotional, behavioral, or learning disability or impairment that cause an individual to require additional or specialized services or reasonable accommodations. Then special educational needs. Special educational needs, those are the special needs that are bearing on schoolwork and education, the learner with special educational needs will need extra attention, assistance from the teacher, and the use of different educational approaches or tools. Special needs education. This refers to adapting the educational system, teaching approaches, environment, programs, as well as tools, and adjusting them to fit the individual needs of learners with special educational needs. Special education. This refers to a separate system of education for learners with disabilities outside the ordinary school. Special education is for learners who have the same disabilities and other special needs. Integrated education, ordinary school system which is not adjusted to accommodate learners with special educational needs. Then inclusive education, this is the point that we must stress on. We must put some stress there. Inclusive education, which is an education system that is flexible and adapted to cater for every learner. If I say inclusive education, understand education system that is flexible and adapted to cater, to help, to care for, to support every learner. Remember that if you have not subscribed yet, please, it's time you subscribed. Then let's talk about rehabilitation. Rehabilitation refers to services provided to new persons with disabilities with the purpose of restoring some of the functionality they lost as a result of their disability. This is done mainly to help them acquire skills for independent living. Habilitation. You can see habilitation refers to service accorded to persons who had no functional skills in the first place at the time of acquiring the disability. It is both about teaching new skills to people who never had them. Let's stress on this point too. Resource loom. If we say inclusive education, if we say inclusion, if we say things related to inclusion, stress even to this point, resource room. This is a room or a place in a school for supporting and teaching learners with special educational needs, equipped with specialized resources, various learning materials, and support services. This is a place in a school for supporting and teaching learners with special educational needs, equipped with specialized resources, various learning materials, and support services. Assistive resources. These are equipment and materials used to facilitate or to aid the functionality of a person with disability. For example, hearing devices, lenses, Parkins braille or braille textbooks, talking calculators, and others. As you understand, they are assistive resources. Any equipment or material used to facilitate or to aid the functionality of a person with disability refers to assistive resources. Special educational needs identification, assessment, and intervention. Identification of learners with special educational needs. Special educational needs assessment. Practical understanding of individual educational planning, IEP, if we abbreviate. Inclusive education methods. Let's start with identification of learners with special educational needs. Know that each child is unique and has individual needs and potentials. In every class or school, there will be children who may have special educational needs identified as a short or long-term difficulty. Many learners have special educational needs of some kinds during their schooling. A learner may have special educational needs when he or she requires alternative interventions during their schooling. For example, schoolwork including reading, writing, comprehending information, expressing themselves or understanding what others are saying, making friends or relating to others, appropriate conduct in school, organizing themselves in schoolwork and in daily life. Special educational needs assessment. Special educational needs assessment. You understand? It is assessment to identify the strength and the weaknesses of a learner. The special educational needs assessment is a process whereby detailed evaluation or understanding of a child's exceptional difficulties and abilities in learning, what we call special educational needs, can be established. Only a small number of children and young people with exceptional learning difficulties or abilities require special educational needs assessment. It is not necessary to wait until a child is attending a school or early education setting to begin special educational needs assessment of a child's needs. First of all, let's see this picture. Try to analyze these pictures. Try analyzing these pictures. The pictures there. Analyze these pictures. Albinism. 8 years with albinism. Abilities, difficulties related to ordinary schooling. Albinists, they may be very far-sighted or nearsighted and may have other defects in curvature of the lens of the eyes, astigmatism, that causes image to appear unfocused. They may have a constant involuntary movement of the eyeball called nystagmus. They may have problems in coordinating the eyes in fixing and tracking objects, strabismus, which may lead to an appearance of having closed eyes at times. They may have reduced depth perception due to altered nerve connection from retina to the brain. Their eyes may be very sensitive to light, photophobia, because their irises allow stray light to enter their eyes. Recommendations. You know that every assessment resulted to some recommendations. Try analyzing this one too. Analyze this child. Analyze these children. See this one. I think you see what they possess. You can see. Try analyzing this. Claude is about 15 years and has lived on the street for 5 years and has used glue for the last 3 years. If you are asked the abilities that this child has, you can give them the difficulties, of course, as well as recommendations. Then Valentine. These are the examples of some special educational needs. I think you have seen her. You have seen how he's looking. How she's looking. Valentine is 5 years and has Down syndrome or trisomy 21st. Some of her difficulties includes cognitive capacity defects, hearing loss, ear infections between 50 up to 70%, eye diseases up to 60%, heart defects present at birth 50%, intestinal blockage at birth requiring surgery, hip dislocation, thyroid disease, anemia and iron deficiency, and others. This one too requires that you recommend something to her.
We analyze each and everything so that you get the meaning. Fata!
John is 5 years and indicates strange behaviors below. You can see John. This is what John does. Inappropriate laughing. May not want coding. No real fear of dangers.
Who spend their time recording themselves. I love people.
Sustained, unusual or repetitive play. You can see.
Can you accompany me so that you go in the video to buy some props?
May avoid eye contact.
Can you show you where you can shop some props?
And of course, apparent insensitivity to pain. So you understand, if you buy some clothes, you can even wear like 10 clothes at once. May prefer to be alone. echoes words or phrase. You can see this picture, analyze this picture. He has been asked whether he is going, and he repeated the question. Are you going? Then John also said, are you going? Insistent on sameness. Spins object or self. Difficulty in interacting with others. These are the problems that indicates special educational needs that John may possess. This is a fearless child. This is what we call behavioral problems. Basic considerations prior to special educational needs assessment processes. The following are some of the basics that schools have to consider. Some information on extent and severity of a learner's difficulties should be acquired before. It may be appropriate to administer measures that assess compensatory skills used by learners with a disability. For instance, assessment of reading ability to a learner with severe visual disability. When using any special educational needs assessment instrument, carefully determine the adaptability to learners with special educational needs. It is not necessary to wait until a child is old to begin assessment of the child's needs. A number of specialists may be requested to assess and report about the learner's needs, usually with parent consents. Parents can choose to have private or school-based special educational needs assessment for their children. The parents and educators ought to receive copies of the assessment report or statement to serve in the assessment, reviews, and evaluation of the learner's progress. Once the assessment decision have been agreed upon, it becomes a guiding document on which educational support will be based. It is important that the assessment statement be reviewed regularly to review the achievement, set new targets, and to check whether the statement is still appropriate to the same learner. After the assessment meeting, the special educational needs assessment team might decide to alter the statement or may propose that the statement is no longer required if the objectives are achieved. At the end of each level, example primary 6 or year 3 or O level, the annual review can include the transition plan, which is discussed by the assessment team to plan child's possible career options. We have assessment team and their responsibilities. Assessment team is also called multidisciplinary team. I repeat again, assessment team is also called multidisciplinary team. It is composed of parents, teachers, learners, the director of studies, head teachers, local leaders, and other related professionals. Let's start with the responsibilities of parents. Parents are a crucial member of the team because they have unique knowledge of their children, strengths, and needs. Therefore, their specific role include identifying if their children has special educational needs, requesting for an assessment of their children if they suspect any special educational needs, provide background information of their children with special educational needs. Let's talk about classroom teachers, their responsibilities. Teachers' responsibilities in assessment include the following: identify the learner with special educational needs and their ability to learn. Work together with parents in order to have more information on learners' special educational needs. To measure and monitor the ongoing progress in learning and behavior for learners with special educational needs. Discuss learners with special needs education progress with parents and deputy of study as well as head teachers. You understand, they have to discuss learners with special educational needs progress with parents. It's student progress with parents, school deputy of study, as well as head teacher, to identify appropriate strategy to match learners' preferred learning style. They are the one to identify appropriate strategies to match learners' preferred learning style using appropriate assessment. Let's talk about the responsibility of the Director of Studies. Director of Studies or Deputy Head Teachers' responsibilities in special educational needs assessment include the following: identify learners with special educational needs. Keep records of the learners with special educational needs. Ensure that the school improvement plans and subject plan include special needs and inclusive education as a priority. Let's stress to this point. Ensure that the school improvement plans and the subject plan include special needs and inclusive education as a priority. Assess the quality of teaching and learning with respect to special education needs. Let's talk about the head teacher. Head teacher should play the following roles in special educational needs assessment: to lead and coordinate activities related to identifying learners with special educational needs, to manage all aspects of school's activity including provision for special educational needs, ensure the inclusiveness in a component of the school improvement, ensure special needs and inclusive education features on the key meeting agenda, maintain productive partnership with parents of learners with special educational needs, to work closely with other assessment team members and avail some tools needed to conduct assessment. So you understand that the head teacher are in charge of availing the tools needed to conduct assessment and to work closely with other assessment team members. Then local leaders, especially those in charge of education, are involved in special educational needs assessment to accomplish the responsibilities as follow: to ensure that the necessary provision is made for learners with special educational needs learners, ensure schools have records of learners with special educational needs, ensure teachers in the school have skills in identifying of and providing support for learners with special educational needs. Ensure learners with special educational needs participate in all school activities, together with their peers who do not have special educational needs. If you understand well, I meant to ensure learners with special educational needs participation in all school activities together with their peers who do not have special educational needs. Ensure parents are informed that their children are receiving special educational needs provision. Be knowledgeable and up to date about school strength and areas for further development in relation to special education needs provision. Know how funding, equipment, and personnel resources are deployed and their impact in raising standards of the beneficiary students. Be aware of the priorities in the school's accessibility plan and the progress made toward them. Monitor the impact of special educational needs, inclusion, on improving learning outcomes. Ensure that inclusive education is an integral part of the school improvement plan. Let's talk about two related professionals. Related professionals in assessment should be qualified educational psychologists, clinical psychologists, and medical practitioners to fulfill the following responsibilities: to identify learners with special educational needs, provide psychological advice, clinical psychologist in charge, provide medical advices where appropriate, medical practitioners. Then the responsibility of learners in special educational needs assessment are as follows. Learners' roles include providing information on their own or peers' special needs. So understand they have to provide some information related to their peers, their friends, their classmates' special needs. Support peers with special educational needs. Understand that they have to support them. The support, the help should be provided by learners, of course. To work closely with teachers to identify strategies to meet learners' special needs. They have this responsibility to work with teachers closely to identify strategies to meet learners' special needs. Special educational needs assessment steps. We have different steps in which special educational needs assessment pass through. The first step is planning and scheduling the assessment. As you see on this table, there are steps, timeline, and responsible people in charge. The first step, planning and scheduling the assessment. It is done at the beginning of the year, and responsible person is, or people in charge are school administration and the parents. The second step is determining eligibility or the suitability for special educational needs assessment. It is done every term upon new arrivals. People in charge are school administration and parents. Step 3 is assessment of learners' potentials and needs before placement. I will stress again to this placement, what we call placement in special needs or in inclusion. Assessment of learners' potentials and needs before placement is done at the beginning of the term. And people in charge are as follow: multidisciplinary assessment team. There are so many. The fourth step is developing individual education plan, what we call IEP, development of individual education plan. This is done at the beginning of the term. Responsible people are IEP team, individual education plan team. The fifth step is monitoring progress, which is done monthly. And people in charge are school administration. The sixth is evaluation of achievements, which is done termly. People in charge are multidisciplinary assessment team. There are so many. So this is a table showing the steps in which special educational needs assessment passes through. Leave fellow for special educational needs assessment. Teachers are often best positioned to identify children with special educational needs, since they are usually conscious of the typical rates of the development, learning, and information processing of children in the age groups they are teaching. A leave fellow for special educational needs assessment can legally be made by everyone involved with the child's education and development, including the parents, teacher, principals, pediatricians, and others. You can see these pictures, then guess what they are doing. So you can see it's very clear. It is so clear and meaningful, as you see. Initiating special educational needs assessment. A number of children will have special educational needs at some stage during their school time, life. This can range from temporary to more complex or long term, and may cause concerns or worries of parents or class teachers. If a learner does not seem to be making progress or need a lot of extra help, then detailed assessment of learners' needs may be required. But the problem is by who? If a learner, I repeat again, if a learner does not seem to be making progress, improvement, change, or needs a lot of extra help, in case a student needs a lot of extra help, normally extra help can be provided, but in case the student needs a lot of extra help, then detailed assessment of learners' needs may be required. Special educational needs assessment is conducted in accordance with procedures set out through regulated and accredited. Different tests to be performed. Prior to organizing systematic tests for assessing students' special needs, it is important to pass through the non-structured assessment based on direct observation, also called pre-referral and referral interventions. I repeat again, prior to organizing systematic tests for assessing learners' special needs, it is important to pass through a non-structured, I repeat again, through the non-structured assessment based on direct observations, also called pre-referral and referral interventions. Pre-referral intervention is typically conducted by a learner-centered team, also called early intervention team, intervention assistance team, learner support team, or institutional support team. The pre-referral team usually consists of the teacher, the parents, the guardians, an administrator, as well as other health professionals. The general education teacher provides the background information regarding the problem exhibited by the students or the student. The intent of pre-referral is to provide interventions that will help the student achieve success without entering special education. However, if these interventions do not improve the student's performance, then the student will be referred for an assessment to determine possible eligibility for special educational services. Then referral. This is also one of the decisions from special educational needs assessment team. Any child's early age are very important. Any child's early areas are very important. Previous years. Any child's early years are very important for their physical, emotional, intellectual, social development. Health workers and physicists might inform the parents about their child's problem, or parents might ask for advice from any specialist if they have any worries. Either way, parents ought to consult or have to consult with the child's class teachers, the special educational needs coordinators or special educational needs coordinator, or the head teacher, and find out if the child is having educational difficulties and has special educational needs. If the child is able to work at the same level as peers of the same age. If the child needs any specific type of help. There is a need for other external support for the learner. A referral for special educational needs assessment can legally be made by anyone involved with children's education and development, including the parents. So we have different types of tests constituting special educational needs assessment. For example, we have intelligence testing. Intelligence testing. It is what it is. Intelligence testing. Intelligence testing is usually done individually, although there are group tests used to identify students for further testing or for accelerated or gifted programs. Group tests are not considered as reliable as individual tests, and intelligence quotient scores generated by these tests are not included in confidential student documents, such as an evaluation report, because their purpose is screening. We have standardized tests of assessment. There are two forms of achievement tests. Those used to evaluate large groups, such as schools or entire school district. Others are individualized, to assess individual students. Tests used for large groups include annual state assessments for No Child Left Behind. No Child Left Behind. No child left behind. And well-known standardized tests such as Lower Basics and Teller Nova tests. We have individualized achievement tests. Individualized achievement tests are a criteria referenced and standardized tests that are often used for the present levels part of an IEP. I repeat again, IEP refers to Individual Education Plan in full words. The Woodcock-Jones test for student achievement, the Penn-Body Individual Achievement Test, and the Key Math 3 Diagnostic Assessment are a few of the tests designed to be administered in the individual sessions and provide the grade equivalent, standardized and age equivalent scores, as well as diagnostic information that is helpful when preparing to design an IEP and an educational program. The fourth type of test, constituting special educational needs assessment, is tests for functional behaviors. Children with severe cognitive disability, autism, need to be evaluated to identify areas of function or life skills that they need to learn in order to gain functional independence. The best known ABBLS was designed to use with an applied behavioral approach. I think you see. Applied behavioral approach. The fifth is curriculum-based assessment, CBA. Curriculum-based assessment. Then curriculum-based assessment are a criterion-based test, usually based on what the child is learning in the curriculum. Some are formal, such as the tests that are developed to evaluate chapters in mathematical textbooks. I repeat again, some are formal, such as the tests that are developed to evaluate chapters in mathematical textbooks. The sixth assessment test is teacher-made assessment, what we call teacher-made assessment, TMA, teacher-made assessment. Teacher-made assessments are a criterion-based. Teachers design them to evaluate specific IEP goals. Teacher-made assessment can be paper tests, picture or word cards, or even tasks, sorted by colors, and so on, for which the teacher writes a task analysis and provides let's do not waste time with this assignment. Let's talk about assessment plan. Assessment plan. An assessment plan is a description of various tests: cognitive, motor, perceptual, communication, social, emotional, and educational, to be used in a student's assessment in preparation for his or her IEP meeting. The assessment plan should be specific regarding which test will be given. These should be individualized test and not standardized test given in a group situation. Match the child's perceived difficulties with a test or subtest that clearly assesses the area. Consider all information, including parental input and classroom performance. Documenting the data. It is important that all assessment information be documented in the IEP. It is very important to document every information. Documenting the data. It is important that all assessment information be documented in the IEP. All other sorry for the inconvenience, be documented in the IEP. It was an alarm. Or other portfolio collection for student transition activities. This information should be included in the assessment portfolio portion of the IEP and can be mentioned in strengths and needs, in development of goals and objectives, and in related services. Let's talk about this important concept. An IEP, Individual Education Plan, or Individualized Education Program. An IEP refers to a written document ordered by law that defines a child's disabilities, which states current levels of academic performance, which describes educational needs, and specifies annual goals and objectives. The unique needs of each child determine what specific program and services are required. The IEP planning process can be very confusing for both parents and professionals. Special Educational Needs Assessment Report. The Authorized Assessment Services ought to issue a written report or a statement of special educational needs that defines the child's educational needs, how these should be met, including differentiation of the curriculum, as well as the outlines of the educational provisions that the learner with special educational need will require. The parents and educators ought to receive copies of the assessment report because these also serve in the assessment reviews and evaluation of the learner's progress. Once the assessment decision or report have been agreed upon by all those involved, including the parents, it then became a guiding document on which educators will base their educational support to the learners in their school. Only the parent reserves the right to agree or disagree with the content of the assessment statement and can make any other alternatives choice in place where this is possible. Review of the assessment for special educational need results can be done. So it It is important that the assessment statement be reviewed regularly, twice or thrice a year for children under 6 years of the age, and annually for older children. To review the achievements, set new targets, and to check whether the intervention are still appropriate to the same learners. The parents and educators are key participants in the review meetings, and space for learning comments on learners' progress. It is important. The reviews of special educational needs assessment statement takes through a meeting of learners with similar to one that established it. I repeat again, the reviews of the special educational need assessment statement takes place through a meeting of a team similar to the one that established it. It is through the review meeting that the responsible services offices might want to make some change to special educational needs assessment statements, or may propose that the statement is no longer required, withdrawn, if the child has met all the objectives outlined within the statement. Remember that if you have not subscribed, it's time you subscribed for more videos. Things are still coming, either interesting, profitable, lessons, of course, you understand, in life. The promotions that we give, the news, updated news we offer. Keep subscribing, keep sharing the videos that make other people profit from these lessons that we provided on Ika Media TV. If you have not subscribed, and if you want to inform your friend to subscribe, please share him or her, or share them the video, share them the link. Invite them to share, invite them to subscribe, to like, to comment for some change. If you've seen that we can change something, please comment. Go in the comment, then tell us what to change. If not so, you understand. Unless you comment, we keep believing that we provided you things how they should be, and you are satisfied. So keep sharing, keep subscribing. Type Ikawa Media TV on YouTube, then subscribe, watch the videos, like, comment, share, and other blah blah. You understand, you are mature. Then the parents and teachers will be involved in all review meetings and will be invited for comments on the on the child's progress. Then reflection question. Why should the parents and teachers attend special educational need assessment meetings? Why? Try answering this in a comment. Why should the parents and teachers attend special educational need assessment meetings? I repeat once again or twice. Why should the parents and teachers attend special educational needs assessment meetings? This is a reflection question, a good question. Drop the answers in the comment. Please comment. Reflection question: why should parents and teachers attend special educational need assessment meeting? Not one meeting, but many meetings. Which are special educational needs assessment based. Let's talk about use of results of special educational needs assessment for educational placement or placement. Use of results of special educational needs assessment for educational placement. The learner's assessing team has to decide on his educational placement. Placement refers to the amount of time in each school day that a student spends in the resource room or in a general education classroom. The school is required to have a range of placements, including the general education classroom, where all children are to be taught or can be taught. In deciding learners' placement, the assessing team must ensure the learner spends as much of their school day as is appropriate with students who do not have disabilities. I repeat again, in deciding learners' placement, the assessing team must ensure the learner spends as much of their school day as is appropriate with children who do not possess disabilities. This includes academic or non-academic activities, as well as after-class, after-school activities. There are some common placements in which students might get specific services. Trying to remember, told you that I will talk about what we call placement. Let me stress on what we call placement. This is placement. Placement there. Placement refers to the amount of time in each school day that a student spends in the resource room. I think you remember what we call resource room. Or in a general education classroom. That's what we call placement. The amount of time in each school day that a student spends in the resource room or in a general education classroom. But remember to subscribe, of course. That's why I said in deciding learners' placement, the assessment team must ensure the learner spends as much of their school day as is appropriate with children who do not have disabilities. This includes academic and non-academic and after-school activities. There are some common placements in which students might get specific services. Regular class with indirect support from special needs education coordinators and specialists. Many learners with special needs or disability receive special education and related services in a general education classroom where all learners also spend their days. Regular class with indirect support from special need education coordinators and specialists, where many learners with special needs or disabilities receive special education and related services in a general education classroom where All learners also spend their days. This is called inclusion. As I said, stress on this point, this word, inclusion. This is called inclusion. Some services that a student might receive in a mainstream setting include direct instruction, a helping teacher, team teaching, co-teaching, an interpreter, education aids, modifications or accommodations in lessons or instruction, or more teacher per student. More teacher per student. More teacher per student. Remember, all these ones reflect on how can be inclusive. They reflect on how teachers or people who is in charge of education issues, whoever who deals with education, must keep in mind that inclusive education is better than must know that inclusive education is incomparable education. Incomparable education. Regardless the disability that someone can possess, you have to care, you have to cater, involve, allow his or her participation, promote his education. Don't bother. Don't restrict. Don't limit anyone's chance because of the disability that they may possess. That's what you call inclusive education. Inclusion. Provide supports. Give the resources necessary. I think you understand. It is necessary to promote inclusive education. It is of high value. Regular class with pedagogical assistance from specialist teacher and resource room master. This is a class for students who receive special education services and require intensive help to keep up with grade level work. The class may have more than one such student. However, individual students receive instruction or support based on his or her specific needs. The number of minutes a child spends in a resource room must be written into the IEP. Special education class full-time at special center. This is a separate, or this is a general term for placement for which a learner with special needs receives services outside of the general education classroom for half of the school class or more. Special education class full-time at special center. This is a general term for placements for which a learner with special needs receives services outside of the general education classroom for half of the school day or more. Placement, as I said, placement in self-contained classroom has to be based on a student's unique needs, not on the disability alone. These are 4 examples of programs often delivered in specialized settings that we thought you should know about. preschool program for children with disability. Preschool program with children with disability. Preschool program with disabilities. This is a set of special education services for children aged 3 to 5. The preschool program for children with disability can take place in different settings, including a child development center, a private preschool, or right on an elementary school campus. Any preschool program for children with disabilities placement can include related services like occupational, physical, or speech therapy. The second one is life skills. Life skills. Remember that these are 4 examples of programs often delivered in specialized settings that we thought you should know about. Life skills. This helps students with many different types of disability, but generally those who need support with academic, social, and behavioral issues, as well as daily living skills. Let's talk about life skills. This helps students with many different types of disabilities, but generally those who need support with academic, social, and behavioral issues, as well as daily living skills. Students who receive services in this program may stay until they turn 22 years old. The third is social behavioral skills. Social behavioral skills. Social behavioral skills. It is also called applied behavior skills or just behavioral or behavior skills. In this program, trained teachers help students learn decision making and social skills to promote self-responsibility with other peers around. Social behavior skills is a separate classroom that children can stay in full-time or part-time depending on their IEP, depending on their individual education plan. The fourth is transition. A small number of students may stay enrolled in special education services until they turn 21st or 22nd years old. Special educational needs assessment. Special educational needs assessment. So you will tune to this video. You will open this video to understand all of these ones. These are the steps guided toward implementation of what you call individual education plan or program. We first of all start with what we call identification. Not all children with disabilities will need an IEP. Not all children with disabilities will need what we call individual education plan. So the first step is to identify which children find it difficult to follow the usual curriculum at the same pace as their peers due to intellectual, physical, or sensory ability. The second step is what we call assessment, to assess. Once a child has been identified, we make a list of his or her strengths and weaknesses. All children are not good at something, even if they may not be good at reading or writing. For example, good social skills, good listening skills, and good self-help skills are all important for a child's overall learning. We saw identification and assessment. Identifying the children or children who need extra help in curriculum studies. Assessment, making a list of his or her strengths and weaknesses. The third is what we call prioritizing area. We have to prioritize areas that we think the most important to work on. Usually from the list of the areas of weaknesses, think about what will have the most impact on the child's success in school. Talk to child's family and others who know the child well to discuss what is important to work on. But remember to be realistic. This is what we call prioritizing areas. The first one is identification. The second one, assessment. The third step is prioritizing areas. And then the fourth one is planning smart target. And these steps are guided toward the implementation of what we call individual education plan. Planning smart target. Simple, measurable, achievable, realistic, time-bound, The aim of the IEP is to set specific short and medium-term targets for the child. So once you have picked the 3 of 4 areas to work on, you need to write a target that you can measure easily, but by doing a simple test with the child. The targets should not be so difficult that they are impossible for the child to achieve. They need to be relevant to the child's day-to-day life. In order to measure the targets properly, you will need to set a time limit. So it is what you call planning smart targets. The fifth step is what we call deciding what you will need. In case you will need some materials, in case you need other help from different locations, whatever you need, you decide what you need. After you decide on the smart targets, you need to think about how you will work on these targets with the child. Think about the teaching strategy that you will need to put in place. Example, group work. Who needs to help? How often? What resources you will need, and when you are going to review this plan. To help make the targets measurable, you need to decide on the success criteria for each target. Example, the child gets 18%. or 8/10. Questions example corrects then when tested. Number 6 is what we call gathering materials. Remember that you have decided what you will need. So on this step you collect the material that you will need. Before you start working on the charts IEP, make sure you have the teaching and the learning material that you need. You can ask other people to help make these resources using recycled everyday household items. You can even set up a competition to see which people can create the best literacy or numeracy resource. Step number 7 is to start implementation. Once you have written charts IEP and you have gathered the resources and the people to help, you are ready to begin. You need to decide who is ready or who is going to monitor how well the child is doing. Teacher, volunteer, a group leader, and others. Remember, you don't need to take the child out of the lesson to work on his or her targets. Try group work. Step number 7 is what we call monitoring and reviewing. Remember that whoever is working on the IEP targets needed to take notes about the child's progress. That way the IEP can be monitored continuously, and if the targets are achieved, new ones can be set. The IEP is a living document. I repeat again, the IEP, Individual Education Plan or Individual Education Program, is a living document. See, for example, these are the homemade materials used for IEP targets. Let's see them in summary. Summary of key steps to take when designing an IEP. We have identification of a learner. Who needs extra help in curricular lessons or other corners of education. Assessment. You list down the weaknesses and the strengths of the learner. Prioritize areas. Plan smart targets. Decide what you will need. Gather materials. Start to implement. Monitor and review. Inclusive education approaches. Individual education planning, learner-friendly school approaches, community-based rehabilitation, CBLR strategy, resource-based inclusive strategy, universal design for learning approaches, individual education planning basing on the SENA results. The school, in consultation, collaboration with the parent, determines whether special education services are needed. If the learner is found eligible for individualized education provision, the school is required to plan for the IEP meeting to determine the IEP team, dates and venue and resource required. Thank you so much. Please, if you know that you did not subscribe, it's time now you subscribed. Share the videos that to promote, to make others profit from these lessons that we upload every day on Ikawa Media TV. Please kindly subscribe. If you have to show some love to this channel, please like the videos, share the videos, comment, provide us some comments. so that we can change things which are not well. Because if you do not, we will not know that you met with unclear things. There are many things to talk about, but let's stop by here today. We shall come back looking learner-friendly school approaches. We shall talk about learner-friendly school approaches, inclusive and learning-friendly school qualities, resource-based inclusive strategies, resource-based inclusive strategies, resource-based inclusive strategies, the exclusion component space for educational resources, community-based rehabilitation. We shall talk about all these ones. Community-based, you can see. Universal design for learning approach. Conditions for all these ones. Braille. The sign languages. Sign language, you can see. Shall talk about them. This is Braille. This is A in Braille. This is B in Braille. This is C in Braille. This is D. Letter D. This is A, sign language. This is B, as you see. So inclusive teacher uses possible strategies to support, to help, to aid learning, regardless someone's disability. Know that they all have the capacity to learn as others. Tactile letter cards. For example, you can see, you can use, in case you are going to teach letters, you can use tactile letter cards. You can use these sign languages. You can use Braille.